on this one. Welcome once again to Comrades, a weekly discussion of the FX series The Americans. My name is Scott Malkus, your host, and with me is my co-host Jeff Marsick. Jeff is the author of a couple cool comic books, and I am the sometimes TV editor for PopDose.com. Last week we talked about how I was going to write something about TV, and I didn't. Although I have something I will write because I'm going to write about this show called Rogue, direct TV show. But I'm still working on that. Jeff, how you doing, man? It's very late on Jeff's neck of the woods. We've kind of flipped the whole lack of sleep thing. Usually it's me up at the crack of dawn talking to Jeff. Today it is nighttime. I'm not sure if you all can hear it, but we have some crickets in my garage.
Yeah, I was just gonna say we have guest hosts this week.
Special guest.
A cricket or two in Scott's garage.
Well, now I have to say it's not my garage anymore. My son renamed it the Jake Cave. So
nice.
So I'm in the Jake Cave. That's from now on. It's the Jake Cave. Rocking the rock band Black Mike, and it's Saturday afternoon or evening. Sorry, well, I'm not supposed to be the tired one.
You're all messed up. See,
I'm all messed up.
The thing is this podcast is like it's like guerrilla podcasting, because the show comes on, and Scott and I both watch it and we make our notes and stuff. But then we used to get together on Fridays and
at my lunchtime.
Do this at lunchtime on Fridays. But then Scott's getting jammed up at work, and then we're like, all right, well, we'll do it Saturday mornings. Well, then Saturday mornings for me is because I'm on the East Coast, he's on West Coast, so Saturday mornings is roughly 10 o'clock my time, 7 o'clock his time. But then Saturday mornings sometimes don't work, so we got to somehow, mash it into our schedule somehow. So
I don't want to make Jeff too tired. So
that's all right. I got a lot of coffee in me.
That's right. That's right. Jeff has lots of coffee in him.
That's right.
Jeff, this was a great episode this week, and you know why?
Why?
Because it had Kenny Rogers.
Kenny Rogers. Dude, that brought back some memories, man.
Why is that? Is it because you know when to hold them and you know when to fold them, Jeff?
Yep.
Do you know when to walk away?
No, I don't. As my dating life, attested. I got caught up because when I first heard it, it immediately brought back memories of Coward of the County, which was favorite of mine as a kid. And I had to keep rewinding it a couple times, going, wait, is it the Gambler or is it Coward of the County? Because at points in the song, they kind of sound the same. And then, it was
they're basically the same song.
Yeah. And then later on in the episode, when the Mossad agent starts, he drunkenly starts belting out, it's like, oh, well, there you go.
Yeah, it's the Gambler. This was an interesting episode because I watched. I don't know how many times you watch it, Jeff. I usually watch it twice. I watch it once because I want to enjoy it. I don't want to be taking notes and writing stuff down because that's just that takes away from the whole point of watching a TV show. And then I'll go review it a second time. And the second time through this one, I actually appreciated it more than the first time. The first time there were moments where it was like the whole business in the safe house felt kind of like it was kind of dragging. But then the second time through it, then I really started to get the themes that they were writing about in this episode, and I really appreciate it a lot more.
Yeah, it's I podcast over on Biters for The Walking Dead, and it's the same kind of thing. I'm usually live tweeting during the regular showing of the episode, so I'm kind of half paying attention to the show, and then I have to go back and watch it a second time. And it's when you watch something a second time, you're catching up on little nuances and things.
Yeah, it's cool. It's interesting because it's interesting to go back. It's a different era that we, like when we were kids. Let's say Hill Street Blues was on, which was featured in this week's episode. You saw it once and that was it. If you missed something, there was no rewinding. It was and it really felt like that concept of disposable entertainment, where it's just like bam, okay, like if you went to see Raiders of the Lost Ark, you could go back and see it again and catch stuff that you missed the first time. but TV shows on, and you either catch it in the reruns in the summer if you can remember, or somewhere down the line if it makes it into syndication. And a lot of dramas rarely make it into syndication anymore, or did. Hardly any dramas made it into syndication because it's hard to sell advertising time for an hour. So this turned out to be a really great episode, and really a lot of interesting points being made in this episode. It was called The Deal. This is episode 5 of The Americans. I'm going to just jump right in, Jeff. Is that all right with you?
Well, I just want to say one thing. So
it's not all right with you.
No, it's not all right, not yet. A couple years ago, when I was working on a project, a story of mine, I was going back and I wanted to watch some old cop shows, and Hill Street Blues is one of those shows where I appreciated it at the time, and I watched some of it, but I think going back now, after having watched The Wire and some of these more, some of these procedurals, like going back and watching Hill Street Blues, I appreciate it much more now watching the series.
Well,
and
yeah.
What's that?
What they were doing was revolutionary for the time.
Oh yeah,
it really was.
So I'm watching this. So when I see Hill Street Blues on this episode of The Americans, it's like, holy cow, that was, it makes me want to go back. And I had started going through all the seasons and watching it front to back. And at some point I stopped it, so I got to start it up again. But
good news for you, Jeff.
What's that?
Good news for you. I just want to point this out. The entire series is coming out on DVD. One big box in about 3 weeks, 2 weeks.
Well, I was in, Veronica Hamill, I was just in love with, one of many women, that I was in love with at the time. So I just happened to, I went and did her IMDb just to see what she's been up to. And she played the DA, Joyce something.
Joyce Davenport.
Joyce Davenport, very good. And, So I went and looked up Veronica Hamill's IMDb page and see, what's she done since Hill Street Blues? So there's an interesting thing in her bio that says that her husband and her had bought Marilyn Monroe's, back in the 80s, in the 90s, I guess, had bought Marilyn Monroe's old Brentwood home. And when they were doing renovations, they opened up all the walls, they found all this sophisticated eavesdropping and bugging equipment all throughout the house. And they went to a judge friend of theirs, or they went to somebody in law enforcement or whatever to take a look at it, what they had found. And the guys were like, yeah, this is like some pretty sophisticated stuff.
FBI, huh?
Yeah. So
J. Edgar Hoover.
Yeah, they had Marilyn Monroe's place all bugged out. Pretty sweet.
Yeah. You know what she played? She played Jack's mother on Lost.
Oh, you're right. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how much I loved her from Hill Street Blues. She was like sophisticated, She was kind of sassy, She was, because most of the women's stars were like sitcom stars. Even when we were kids, I'd be like, oh, Christy on Three's Company. You had that, and then here was the Joyce, and I was like, oh yeah.
Well, she was such a strong character. She was such a strong character. But then so was Betty Thomas, who has.
No, yeah, that was a great show for all that show, and St. Elsewhere, which was, I was more of a St. Elsewhere viewer only because my mom was still is a nurse, so she watched it. So it was kind of like this thing where she would go, "Oh, that's accurate. Oh, that's real. Oh, they're just kind of fudging that for."
Right.
And St. Elsewhere took some really strange creative risks that at the time I was like, "This is kind of weird," but now I look back and go, "All right, that's cool." It's kind of screwing around with time and dreams and stuff like that. Things that kind of going one step further than what Hill Street did. And Hill Street was, Hill Street was great. I remember watching Hill Street when I could at Thursday nights. And having Hill Street on this episode was like the first time in the show I can say, oh, I know what day of the week it is. It's a Thursday. This episode all takes place on a Thursday night because that show only aired on Thursday nights.
That's right.
And I was interested because, and the other thing about it, because, and although I did look up the history of the show, the history of, why are we talking about this? Hill Street originally aired on Thursday, but then they had its first season, they were just kind of dumping it. So they aired Thursday and then they had on Saturdays, 2 episodes a week. They were just like kind of putting multiple episodes on a week. But it wasn't until later, and this show takes place in 82 at least. This season of The Americans, I think, is 82. So then it had its permanent residency on Thursday night. So we know that was Thursday night, and when Martha's watching that episode, it's 10 o'clock. So
Yep, that's right.
it's I guess it goes into Friday morning because everything that's happening.
Right.
But,
well, one of the I tried to take the quote that Joyce makes in that clip, and I tried to Google it to see if I could get the episode because like we talked about, I want to see what year that if they put in a good one. But one of the just last thing, and then we'll talk about the American show. But one of the lasting legacies of Hill Street Blues coming forward, you said that Veronica Hamill was Jack's mom on Lost, but Detective Bowser from Hill Street Blues was Hector on Breaking Bad. The dude in the chair with the bell.
No, that wasn't him.
Yeah, it was.
No,
I swear it was.
Margolyes? Bowser, the dude with the cigar and always barking at people?
Yeah.
Not the same guy. I'm sorry. I'm going to have to say no.
All right. Well, I'm going to look that one up. So go ahead. Start us.
But Dennis Franz was on Hill Street Blues for a while, and he went on to be in NYPD Blue.
Yep.
Okay, this episode. Well, Jeff looks up, and I have to prove him wrong. I'm very sorry. The Hector was in Scarface, but all
right, go on.
Okay, this episode is called The Deal. It was written by Angelina Burnett, whose credits I was looking up today. She is written for Memphis Beat, which was the Jason Lee TV show on TNT, and Boss, the Kelsey Grammer show.
Right.
Yeah, Kelsey Grammer show, Boss. She was the writer for that. And then it was directed by a guy named Dan Adius. I'm hoping I'm saying it right. And he's a veteran director whose credits include Damages, Alias, which seems appropriate, Sopranos, Northern Exposure, and one other. And here's this week's Treme connection. Yes, he directed an episode of Treme as well. The episode was kind of broken down into like 4 separate stories, and it takes place the same night as the botched kidnapping that took place at the end of last week's episode. The botched kidnapping of this guy named what was his name, Jeff? I wrote it down. Anton Baklanov. He's a physicist from the Soviet Union. He's Jewish, and they want him. The KGB and the Soviets want him for this top secret project he's been working on for the DoD.
Which we come to discover via a quote. What was the quote? He specializes in the invisible, or he makes things disappear is what it was. So you know what he was working on.
Furthers the stealth technology that they're talking about, which is a big deal. I thought it was this. I mean, this was an interesting episode. It opened with Philip and Elizabeth having to drag this Mossad agent that they basically apprehended in the botched kidnapping attempt. We do learn that the woman who attacked Philip and Elizabeth last week was definitely the mistress for.
Oh yeah.
They do point that out. That was Anton's mistress. So Philip and Elizabeth are dragging this Mossad agent through the streets, trying to find a place to hide. The cops are starting to swarm because of gunshots that have been fired, and they find they walk by a bar. They're dragging them down the street. They walk by a cheesy bar. And inside the joint, we hear the Gambler coming out, which we were just talking about, coming out pretty loud. And now that I think about it, that's a pretty rowdy bar. It must have been around 8 o'clock at night when this is all taking place. It's a pretty rowdy bar so early at night, but it is a suspect part of town.
Yeah, it's a suspect part of town, blaring
country western music. Yeah. The cops drive up to him, shine a light on him. Elizabeth is ready to pull her gun out, and the Mossad agent does something interesting. He starts singing the Gambler, as we talked, and we learned that it's better for him to be apprehended by KGB agents than actually be arrested by American police. So that tells us that this guy is not necessarily. Well, we know he's not on the up and up, but he definitely does not want to be arrested and be exposed for being in the United States secretly.
Right. So basically, he's running a covert operation as well, and he needs to be. He can't be caught. But I think that the thing that was just a little bit ridiculous about that scene was that maybe they mitigated a little bit because the cop just the lingering look that the cop kind of looks at him.
Yeah.
Is that she's dressed in black with a black baseball cap. He's dressed in black with a black what we used to call a watchman's cap, watch cap, a stocking cap basically, and they've got some drunk guy between them. I mean, you could not have
he's beat
sketchier.
Up. He's beat to crap.
Yeah,
he's like got bruises on his face. His arm must be broken or whatever. So yeah. Like, what the heck happened? They
could not look sketchier, and the cop just kind of gives them, this lingering look, and
don't you drive?
Yeah,
lectures him. Yeah. They get to a safe house, which I don't know where she got the key, but there's a key. She has a key to that safe house.
Yeah,
and they get inside.
No. She picked the lock.
No, she picked the lock of the gated
Oh, you're right.
They go in there, but when they get to the actual house, I watched it. She has a key. And she gets in there, so that must be, one. As we learned in this episode, there are so many KGB agents in America.
There are a lot, yeah.
There are so many just floating around. They're probably listening to me right now because, my house was built in the 60s, so they were,
That's right.
They didn't take their equipment out. So they get into this house, and basically it's up to Elizabeth to go notify the center that Philip is trapped in a safe house with the KGB agent, or not, the Mossad agent, and the cops are roaming the neighborhood.
And they're only like a block away from where they nabbed him.
Yeah, and they've been seen, so it's a big deal. And in this scene, I'm just kind of going through a lot of the Philip stuff here because I just kind of wrote. Anyway, during this whole safe house storyline, there's one of the main symbols of this whole storyline is the icicles, and the Mossad agent starts talking about seeing icicles outside. It's cold, and that for him, that's his way to get inside. He's basically trying to get inside Philip's head this whole episode, and he starts talking about home, and that's one of the themes of this episode: is home and what you call home and where is home, and for the Mossad agent, he still calls Israel home. He's still living there.
Right.
He just comes over here secretly, does missions, but he still goes back. But for Philip, he hasn't been back to Russia since, and probably since he left, that first time. He is an American for all intents and purposes, And
what was really good about that scene, what was really interesting about that scene was that you have one professional has captured another professional.
Right.
And how that second professional, like you said, he starts to get into Philip's head, and that's the thing that you do with your captors. You try to, get into their head and kind of dissuade, sway them from their cause, and the way, and and we'll talk about it later on, but how the difference between a professional, the Mossad agent, doing it, and then how
the Russian
scientist was doing it in the car.
Yeah.
Later on, two completely different styles, both trying to accomplish the same thing, sway your captor's mindset.
Right, and this episode, I mean, they cut back to the safe house business. They split it up, but it's basically one long scene with Philip and this guy with interruptions going to different places. During this whole sequence, I think that what we see here is Philip, this discussion with the Mossad agent and him talking about Russia and childhood, and Philip not being able to go home again, and starting to think about, well, where is his home? Is it Russia? He hasn't been there in 20 years, but his children are here in the U.S. And I think that for me, what I started to see with Philip in this episode was him starting to examine, how the death of Emmett and Lydia has affected him, because if he ever went back to Russia or something, what would happen to Elizabeth and the kids,
Right.
I mean, and the series started off with him saying, we could stay in America, we could just defect,
Right.
But this one seemed to have him thinking about his past and longing for home. And, you can't go home again, is that an overused phrase, but he can't go home again. And I think that, he's starting that reality, maybe in the beginning of the series, it was just kind of a thought, but now it's more kind of that reality of it is starting to sink in, especially with the death of his two friends. It's like, we're in a serious game here. We're in a, and now I've got, it's not, he's in love with Elizabeth, but he loves those kids even more.
Right.
That's what I started to get from this episode, is how those two's deaths, because we haven't, ever since they died, it's really been focused on Elizabeth and how she's been coping. And here I think we've seen Philip, kind of shutting down and just becoming very internal. And it was very interesting. Usually he's very outspoken, very lively, and here he's just very, like I said, he's very like intense and being internal, I guess.
Yeah, he had a lot of poker face going this episode.
Yeah, and I think that was hard for him.
Especially the later scene with Anton in the car.
Yeah. Other things that happen with this whole safe house business is we meet a new handler. Their new handler. Her name is Kate. She's young, eager, and pretty. And she has food and medical supplies. Philip is he's basically like short with her. He's like, keep your mouth down.
She comes in. Yeah, she comes in like a rookie. Like, oh, I've heard so much about you, and I'm so excited to be working with you, and I hope I can impress you. And he's like, shut up. Get
the heck up. And she says some interesting things. She's like, Claudia was the most experienced field handler, and they found that she wasn't good enough, and they took her away, which is an interesting comment because Claudia is still roaming around in the state somewhere. Is she going rogue? I don't know. And then she says, the center wants you happy, and then she says something, I want you happy. And I don't know. She's so young. I just wonder if they're going to try and strike something up there. I don't know.
I know. I was hearing porn music in the background.
Well, I didn't know because it just seems like, they've had the older guy, their original handler, and then they have Claudia, and they're both like these aging veterans of the KGB Cold War, and now they have this young, pretty girl that comes in. It's like, I want to make you happy. I want to, it's like, it's kind of a weird choice. I think the most important line of this whole sequence, this whole series of scenes with the Mossad agent and Philip, and I'm not talking about when he has to wipe his butt after he takes a dump. I'm talking about when the agent says, when Philip says to the agent, he says, we're going to do a trade for you. And the Mossad guy's like, I can't tell if you're being kind or naive. Would your government make that trade for you? And Philip's like, I don't know. And the Mossad guy says something really, really pointed. He goes, me, I know. I'm bronze, not platinum, not like you. I go home for Passover. I sing country and western music with an accent. I hide what I do. I don't hide who I am.
Right.
And that really kind of really hit, Philip hard. And I think that's, it was interesting. I think, like I said, I think Philip is missing Russia. Who he is, part of who he is Russian, and he can't he can't go to the Russian embassy and hang out and drink vodka with those guys. He can't. He's got to be constantly putting on this show, and I think maybe it's starting to wear on him.
I think there was also a little pointed comment in the little commentary on the value to the big organization. So I don't think Philip and Elizabeth really know what their value is to the KGB. If push comes to shove,
I think they're burning.
Yeah, with the KGB, we've had they've had this conversation about, well, what would happen to the kids? If something happened to them, what would happen to the kids? What would the center do? Well, we already know that the center puts bodyguards on the kids and then pulls them off when they get a little nervous, so they can't be trusted. So what I took from that comment from the Mossad agent as well was also about,
that's who those guys in the street were.
His value to what's his value to the overall to the overall team.
Were those guys doing road construction outside their house? Were those supposed to be the bodyguards?
That's what I took, because remember we talked about how they were doing all this road work and then they pick up and go away and there was nothing in the road, like they hadn't done anything. So I took it to be that those were guys. That was the center watching them.
Oh, I didn't catch that until just now. Sorry,
I could be wrong.
No, I think you're right, because when they leave, thinking back to that episode, they leave and Elizabeth has got a very, she's very aware that they're there, and then they leave, and she also makes,
So I could be right about that, but clearly I was wrong about the Bowser thing on Hill Street Blues. You're right, it wasn't the same guy.
I'm very sorry. I didn't mean to What was that guy's name?
Uh, uh,
Oh,
Mike
you close.
White's.
White, Bruce White's. That's his name, Bruce White.
Yes, Bruce White's.
Yes. I
Holy
think.
cow! He was born here in Connecticut, 1943. Norwalk, which is like 15 minutes from me.
Awesome. I think I met him once doing a voice for Wild Thornberries. I'm pretty sure he did a voice. He was very nice.
Cool.
Okay, well, there's a little side story about my life in the casting business. Okay, elsewhere in the episode, now we take a pause because all the stories are going to converge by the end of this episode. So we've got that whole safe house things carrying on through the whole episode. Another thing that's going on is the next story that they introduce is the Russians. The Russians are in their house in the embassy, and they are scrambling to find out what has happened to their two agents out in the field. And you've got you've got Arcady, who is trying. He's in the radio room with this guy who looks like he's twice his size, but nervous around Arcady.
Right.
You get that the radio operator guy looks like just sitting there. He looks like he's almost bigger than Arcady.
Yeah.
But he's still like nervous around him. And that whole sequence was very interesting. I like.
He asked him for a cigarette, and the guy.
That was a great. He's like,
he pulls out. So he asked the guy, the radio operator, for cigarettes, and the guy pulls out Russian cigarettes.
Yeah.
And he's like, Russian cigarettes, and he's like, well, the American ones are too expensive.
Yeah.
So Arcady lights one up, smokes it, and he says, we are better at vodka, but they are better at tobacco.
Yeah. And he's becoming one of my favorite characters. He's a very interesting character. And Oleg knocks on the door, and Arcady is like angry. He's like, "Why are you knocking on the door?" And then Oleg's like, "Well, pertains to my mission, so I need to know what's going on." And Arcady's like, "Is President Reagan scaling the walls in his cowboy hat? Then don't knock on my door."
Right.
It's great. But throughout this thing in the radio room continues, and then it carries out over into this big map room. But there's a theme here, and this is like, for me, the second big theme of the episode is loyalty, and who you're loyal to, and where your loyalty lies, and that comes out in numerous ways throughout this episode. But for Arcady, he's loyal to the people he trusts, and he points out, that he's not going to let an agent of his get stuck in the field. He's going to do whatever it takes to get a deal done, even if it costs him his career. He will make sure that they will not be left behind. And and then he talks about how the Mossad agents are prepared to die for their cause. That's their sense of loyalty to their cause.
But his quote when Arcady comes up later, he says, "Russians will die for principles that will one day free all mankind. Jews, they'll die for their tribe."
Right, and that's like I said. That's like, and it's interesting because that, like I said, that the Mossad guy, his loyalty is more to what's expected of him is to die for the tribe. That's his sense of loyalty.
Right.
And for Arcady, his sense of loyalty is we don't leave a man out there. We bring him in. Obviously, they won't bring him in because they don't want him to be revealed. But for me, Arcady has proven time and again that he's loyal to the people he trusts. Like with Nina last week when he says the reports. Oleg's reading the reports, but I have not told him about your indiscretions. He's protecting her. He's loyal to her because she was honest with him, and I think he's an interesting character because I think he's very straight and narrow. He's cut and dry. And as we see with Oleg, he's working the angles. He's more in that gray areas and stuff.
Arcady has proven himself to be a good leader. He's proven to be somebody who's true to his cause. And going back to that comment too, it's funny how when we as Americans see the Russians, we only see the Russians. Even now, current events going on in the Crimean region, but especially in the 80s, all we saw were Russians were out after their own. They were looking out for Russia. They were looking out for Russian interests. That's all they were looking at. So
they were the evil empire,
right? So this comment that he makes is basically that the Russians are what they're doing with communism and all this stuff. They're doing it for the betterment of mankind,
right?
Theirs is this bigger narrative. Whereas the Jews are just worried about their own people, and it's almost like he was demonized as we demonize the Russians for what we saw them. He was demonizing the Israeli state, but and the thing is when Arcady, I think when we first got introduced to Arcady, he pretty much was, at least for me, he came across as your stereotypical Russian, KGB agent.
He was a second fiddle. He was the second in command of the previous guy who Nina was basically doing sector favors with to get information, and I can't remember that character's name. That was first season. I'm sorry,
but
we're only talking about second season here.
That's right. But he's definitely come on, especially in the past couple episodes, is showing that, and I'm liking the parallels between him running the KGB office and Gad, and how he's the same way with the FBI.
Right. I was thinking about, as you were talking about, how how we demonized the Russians, and how Arcady is saying, he has these beliefs and these principles, how they're going to save mankind, right? And we don't know what the Russian leaders were. They may have been just power hungry and wanted to take over the world. But for an underling like, Arcady, he's just like, someone who is a follower of Obama or a follower of Mitt Romney, who believe wholeheartedly in what that guy is saying. And that's what Arcady is showing. Is I believe in what my people are, my president, my whatever they had in Russia. I'm sorry, Soviet Union.
He's drinking the Kool-Aid.
He is, but he's honest. He in his core he believes that. And that's what I think I admire that about him.
Right.
Because he's not some evil guy just out there to crush America. He has these principles that he believes in, and I think that makes him an interesting character. And it's an interesting thing for the writers to do because, as they've done with this show, which is put us inside the heads of people who, like we said, we were supposed to be afraid of and hate because it was the 80s and the Cold War was going on, but yet we care about them and we see them as human beings, not just, like I said, the evil empire. He's doing the same thing with the guys who are the quote-unquote evil empire, which is like Arcady. They're humanizing him and making them, people that you can relate to. I think that's a great sign of writing. It's like, anytime you can relate to the villain, so to speak, it makes for much more compelling television or art altogether.
Right.
Further on in the episode, Oleg continues to push his ways. A deal gets made, as we find out. An exchange will happen. We don't know what the deal is just yet. We find out at the end, which I don't want to get to yet because it's an interesting thing. And we cut to this map room, and they're talking about extraction options, and what they decide, they're trying to decide, well, we're going to do it in Baltimore, we're going to do it in Norfolk, or whatever. And Oleg says, I don't think Norfolk is a good idea. He has some good thoughts. He says the FBI has the same exact maps that we do,
right.
And they're going to be picking the best spots to send their agents to help to stop this exchange. And Arcady tells him, I don't want you anywhere near this exchange. And Oleg's like, why? I'm the second in command. I should be, I'm a senior officer underneath you. I should be here. And Arcady says, because you're so highly under surveillance. You're going to be under surveillance, and if you go out driving around, they're going to think that you're going there, and they're going to follow you. And two things happen when Arcady says that. Number one, Oleg responds, I happen to be very skilled in counterintelligence, which to this point we've kind of always thought Oleg is just this flunky who got the position thanks to some relative.
Right.
So that him saying that is like kind of says, well, maybe he is skilled, as we learned sooner after. But I think Arcady also basically puts in Oleg's mind how he's going to, make his next move, which happens at the end of the episode. I think that Arcady is kind of responsible. And then Oleg goes and plays Nina and gets her to feed information to Stan. It's Oleg is turning into an interesting character. And I can't tell whether he's evil, or he's really is a capitalist, or what his play is. I'm interested to see where he goes. He stops Nina later after she says what's going on in there, and he says Arcady thinks like a bureaucrat. He'll never beat the Americans that way. And then he calls out Nina on some of the stuff that he read in her files.
Yeah.
And I thought that was like, where's that going?
Yeah, he's like you said, when he first came on the scene, and even the things that he's done, little strings that he's pulled, it seems like he's just a manipulator. But he's kind of a cagey cat, and
He
especially
is.
what happens later on in the episode too.
Yeah.
So he's I like that they've got every character that they develop in this show isn't as two-dimensional as they seem when they first appear.
Right.
They have some complexity to them.
So that's that part of the story, which I get. Like I said, I'm kind of breaking it up. We're talking about like four different stories at once because they do converge at the end. Next up, well, except for this last one, Martha. We get to the end result of Martha, and I remember last week I kept saying Martha's doomed. She's done for, right? But we find out, like I was saying earlier, the KGB. There's so many KGB agents everywhere in this country. And Martha's phone lines, of course, are bugged, which I don't know why we didn't think of that. They're monitoring her calls, right. And so she makes one more call to Clark and says, "I'm going to fill out this application, and I'm going to say I'm married.
Yep.
You better call me.
This is I've left all these messages. You're not returning them, so you must be okay with this."
Now, I'm thinking about this. When did she start? Again. We're thinking in a timeline here. This is a crazy timeline that, like, I guess it's winter, so it would be dark really early. So it's like must be like 8 when she makes that call, because then the KGB guys call Elizabeth at home. Now Elizabeth comes home. She comes home to monitor the kids. We don't see Henry this episode, but she knocks on the door with Paige, and she says, "I don't mind that you're reading the Bible. I just don't want you to hide stuff," which is a line that I think is going to come back to bite Elizabeth in the ass someday. Yeah. Just like that line that Philip used with Paige earlier, saying lying will not be lying is not acceptable. All these things that they're saying are just going to there's going to be a nuclear explosion in that house as when Paige discovers what's going on.
Right.
She's going to move to New York City and become a goth chick. But she's on her way. Because she makes a comment. She's like, she's like, oh, she's all messed up kid. But she doesn't know why. So she tries to talk to Paige, and then the phone rings. And guess who's calling? It's the Columbia House Record Club.
Yeah. I love the coding that they use in this.
Yeah. Columbia House Record Club. Did you do the Columbia House Record Club?
Oh, my Lord. Did we ever? When I was at the academy, as soon as we didn't, we could start getting mail and all these offers and stuff my second year, and Columbia House, and what was the other one? It was
CMG.
That's right.
And then later it was a CDHQ, but that which was the CD headquarters, which was I think an extension of Columbia. But in the 80s, you got the 12 LPs. What it was? Did you do that in the 80s?
Oh yeah, we would sign up and get the 10 free ones, 10 or 12 free ones for a penny, and then we wouldn't buy anything more, and we would change. So I had an account under Jeff Marsick, J Marsick, J.A. Marsick. And I had like 17 different accounts just to get all the free stuff for a penny. And
did they ever call you searching for like?
No.
All right. Well, I'm gonna let you. I'll let you. When I was in college, there was a friend of mine who's no longer of this world, who was an RA at a university in Ohio. I know this is all mail fraud, so I don't want to get in. And he would because he worked in the mailroom as an RA, he would do the Columbia Record Club for floors that didn't exist on the dorm.
Oh, nice.
And then he would send them out for like Frank Enstein,
we did that too. Yep.
Yeah, Steve King, Bram Stoker. They do all these things to a floor that didn't exist, and then the CDs they have a list of names like, oh, Frankenstein, floor 6 of a 4-foot floor. Okay, and he'd take those things and he built his CD collection. I think he got all his Bob Dylan albums for free. That would be mail fraud. But I did do the 12, and that was the biggest ripoff too. I did it with my mom's permission, and you got like the 6. You got like you did get 12 LPs with the obligation to buy 6 more. Six more over the course, and those LPs were so overpriced.
Oh my gosh, they were awful. Yeah,
it was like $12 for a $6 LP. You were paying double. Yep. Basically, you got those 12 for free, and then you paid for it later. With the shipping and handling.
Oh
and,
my gosh, yeah.
And if you didn't send the reply card back in time, they sent it back to you. They
Yep.
sent you. It's like, oh, it's the new Madonna. Well, I don't want Madonna, and here it comes. I'm like, what? Stupid card. It didn't get to me in time.
Yeah. Then remember they did that with I remember it was cassettes and CDs, and then they had movies.
Yep. I never did the movie one.
Yeah, we got torched on movies. Book clubs were doing the same thing.
I did the quality paperback book club. I did that.
I did the Stephen King book club. Same thing. Just you get like two Stephen King novels for like a penny. Then you had to buy X number within a year, and they were twice the price.
About that, though, to get that in the mail.
It was cool, but
it was just cool to get that shipment. I remember I'd be like, oh yeah, I really want this double album, and I can get it for like half price. Great. And then when it would arrive, you'd be like, oh yeah, I've been waiting for this. Now it's like you just go to Amazon and you download it.
Yeah.
Even the book club, the paperback book club, it's like they'd have these really weird collections. I still have them, like 5 Arthur Miller plays in one book, and all of Flannery O'Connor's novels collected in one edition. It was like kind of a weird little things, but it's like they don't make those. You can't even get those in the library because.
I used to do the same thing. Mail order comic books. I used to like comics that were coming out, and you could order 3-4 months ahead of time. You'd be like, oh, so you'd make the order, and then say the comics were coming out on April 1st. Well, by the time they got mailed and shipped to you, and by the time you received it, it was July 1st. You were like, and it never without fail. I would order the books. And then, without fail, I would end up being at a comic book store and going, well, I don't have that issue. And I would buy all the issues. And then they would come, having been mailed to me that I had ordered already.
Is that how I got all those issues? Yes, all your doubles?
Yes. So every time I send you a shipment of comic books, it's probably a double because I'm an idiot.
All right, so the Columbia Record House Club isn't really calling Elizabeth. It's actually the KGB guys, the guy. How about that actor? Hey, we got you for 3 lines, and you're in one scene. He's basically calling to say that Martha is she's about to blow everything, and so Elizabeth has to do a quick change and get over to Martha's house and act as Clark's sister Jennifer. And this to me was probably the most interesting sequence of events, because the moment Elizabeth walks into the apartment, she is judging Martha. And it is interesting to me because, even in parts of it this season, she still hasn't shown the full love that she's supposed. I feel like she's still she's falling in love with Philip,
Right.
But this episode, she's jealous.
Right.
You can see her jealous of Martha, and you can see her. She's seeing this other side of her husband's life, and she is.
Well, how interesting.
She feels that. Yeah.
How interesting and challenging is it? Not just as the actress playing this, but if you were actually this person, that you have Elizabeth playing the sister Jennifer, but reading Martha on Elizabeth's, on, like you said, judging her from Elizabeth's mentality. So while she has to be on the exterior, she's got to be Jennifer. On the inside, she's Elizabeth. I mean, watching the scene, and especially later on when Martha gets a little bit more hammered, and she's just like, oh, Clark he's an animal. He's an animal in the sack, and you just see like the look on Jennifer's face, Jennifer/Elizabeth's face. It's like, oh, really? And when she's like, do you want me to tell you about it? And
First
you
of all,
can see that.
I just gotta say. I mean, any normal person would not tell a sibling about this.
Right.
If my sister-in-law came over to me and started talking, I'd be like, stop. Right. Just stop. I don't want to know about
TMI. Don't need to know. But, I think he kind of let it go just because she had been putting down some wine. So.
Oh, yeah. She's drinking a lot of wine.
Yeah. And, and there's a repression there. And she's never around. Clark is never around. And I thought what was interesting about that was that Martha makes a comment, that it's not her comment. I think it's a comment that Jennifer makes / Elizabeth that it was basically like, do you even know Clark? Do you know what he's like? And Martha's just like, no, I guess I don't. And yet you married this guy, but yet there's this, you don't know that he's never around or that he pulls this stuff like all the time.
Right.
So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah. I think the most interesting part was definitely Elizabeth figuring out that she's jealous.
Which is so interesting, given that Clark / Philip is playing this part of giving the goods to Martha,
right?
And knowing what she has had to do to get information and do whatever,
exactly.
And yet,
but to her, it was always an act. Her was always part of the mission, and I think Elizabeth is wondering how much of it is an act. Is it an act for Philip? Because he spends time with this woman. He has to act like he loves her, and obviously he had to act that he loved Elizabeth, and he fell in love with her. Could he be falling in love with Martha?
Right.
And because she knows that when they talk about in being in the sack and having sex and stuff like that, she knows that she's never been the warmest lover to Philip. So is he acting out stuff? Is this more of what he wants? Is this more of who he is?
Is her coldness pushing him into
exactly?
Martha, yeah.
And now, it's like it's interesting because she feels like she's falling in love with him, and is she afraid she's going to lose him? Is an interesting, I think that's the kind of stuff we see going through her mind. And at the end of this whole sequence, Martha's passed out on bed, and Elizabeth is just standing over her, watching her sleep. And I just thought that was, it wasn't so much that she was watching her sleep. She was saying, "This is the bed where my husband comes to sleep in."
Yeah, because you saw the negative space where Philip would have been lying next.
Exactly, and it's like, it's almost as if she's saying, "This is my husband's mistress."
Yeah.
Although he's legally married to Martha. Technically legally married because they got married, even though he's a false name. But they never. He and Elizabeth and Philip, from my understanding, they were officially married. They just that took up this.
It was very it was very voyeuristic of Elizabeth into this relationship that Philip has with Martha.
It is. So that was a compelling story, and so finally, the last bit of this episode's puzzle is our buddy Stan, whose life is just starting to go to hell in a handbasket. It's the only way I can. By the end of this episode, his life is going to start to unravel. At home, Susan is doing another self-awareness type of exercise. She's doing soul retrieval, which I've never heard of before. She's sketching something on the bed. And she talks about how, she's been told that if she draws things, it helps her retrieve something of herself, of her past. And Stan's like, I don't know who you are anymore. That's what I got from that. I was like, who are you? Oh, you're making new friends. He's almost jealous. He's like, oh, you're making friends. That's good. But
then she drops this new agey stuff on him, and he's just like, what?
Yeah, he doesn't know what to think of it. Then phone rings, and it's the new boss. And the guy's name is Hallowell. And he's played by this kind of veteran character actor, a guy named John Bedford Lloyd. And as soon as I saw him on screen, I was like, oh, it's that guy. Yeah, he's one of those actors you see him all the time. We're like, oh yeah, it's him.
He's the kind of guy. He's the guy. You're like, oh wait, I've seen him in such and such and
Law and Order. I've seen you in like 6 other shows.
Yeah.
So Stan gets called in because Stan's like, I don't want to come in, and like, well, it's a physicist who's been kidnapped, and his wife called. She said if anything happens to him, they're supposed to call the FBI or supposed to call our office. And the guy, Hallowell, says, after what happened last year with the other scientist, we want you to come in. So now Stan's running the show. Stan's in charge of getting all these guys together. They're doing phone logs, studying they're doing crime reports in the police in the neighborhoods, trying to figure out if maybe he got picked up, he got arrested, doing all this stuff in the field office. and in walks Gad, and Gad walks in, and Hallowell is like, What are you doing? What are you doing here? And Stan is like, well, I asked him to come. I thought we could use the help. And Hal is like, all right, give him a highlighter. And as we soon learn, Stan did not bring Gad in to do, check phone records or anything like that. And he was just waiting for the right moment to get him private and say, I need you to make some phone calls. I made phone calls, and it turns out that this physicist has connections to the DOD, and I could call DOD, but how long do you think it's going to take for them to answer me?
Right.
But if you call the DOD, and Gad is like, oh,
Gad's eyes light up, and he's just like, oh, you didn't just bring me here to be...
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, I get it. It's like, and again, it goes back to another that theme of loyalty. Stan feels intense loyalty to Gad. They've been through a lot together, and I think that they will continue to go through a lot. And what I liked about, we talked about last week how, maybe Gad was going to become like his Chris for this season. They could become a duo. Mm-hmm. There was a little bit of that in there where Gad kind of walks off, and, I'll go make some phone calls, and later on he comes up to Stan and says, I couldn't get anything, the DOD is not talking. It's a clearance code that I don't even have. What are we going to do? And Stan surmises, well, somebody must be talking. And so then, of course, Stan's next plan of attack is to go to Nina. And see, now the stories are starting to converge, just like I said, Jeff.
That's right.
Jeff sees me circling my hand around.
It's the circle of life.
Circle of story. It's the circle of story when the Russians and the FBI meet. I will never sing that again. I'm sorry. So Stan gets Nina, who's been fed information by Oleg, and Nina says, "Oh, Oleg is this big wig, and he seems important." And so Stan goes back to Gad and says, "This guy Oleg is important. I bet he's going to go make the drop. He's going to go grab the physicist. We should follow him." Booyah! Uh-oh. Oleg has set up Stan, and then they get this big, Starsky and Hutch mission where they're following him. But it's like, that takes up about 10 minutes of screen time. It's like, okay, he's on the freeway. And it's like, actually, to me, that was kind of interesting how they do maneuver. But Oleg, of course, we find out Oleg is, I knew you guys were following me like 5 minutes after I left.
Yeah, so he's pretty, he
is very savvy. And what happens, Jim? What happens? We think that they've really timed it nicely where you get an idea that maybe that they're going to be on the same dock as Philip and the Mossad agent and this trade-off of the physicist. But no, Oleg went to Norfolk. Like they said, we shouldn't go to Norfolk, so Oleg went to Norfolk. They followed him to Norfolk, but only Stan gets there. And what happens? What happens? It's going to unravel Stan's world.
Yeah, so he confronts him about Nina and basically says that, if you don't want anything bad to happen to Nina, you're gonna have to play ball, which is really interesting because I wrote in my notes that Stan's in a position, does Stan get flipped?
Well, that was the whole reason that Nina decided to become a double agent, was to flip Stan. They want to flip Stan, and. But
Nina doesn't know that this is like going on over Nina's head now. So
yes.
Nina's trying to flip Stan. Now Oleg is there using Nina as a pawn against Stan to try to flip him. So he's getting, as I mentioned last week, the pincher movement.
Ooh, the pincher movement. Yes. It's the pincher movement. You have to imagine your hands coming together like little
crab claws.
Little crab claws. They make this noise. Click, 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 click. Anyway, yes, but I also noticed that Oleg also said that I am a budding student of capitalism, I think is what he said, something along those lines. And it's interesting because I am a student of capitalism. So is Oleg really want information, or does he want money, goods? What is Oleg going to want? So
that's a good point. That is a good point.
Because he does like American stuff. I'm a budding student of capitalism. Everything has a value. Everything can be traded. What can you give me in exchange for Nina's safety? We'll talk again.
It's got to be information. It can't be season tickets to Capitals games.
Maybe he wants to meet Stan's wife. Maybe he wants some special New Age lessons.
Yeah, that's gonna be an interesting. And Stan's in a tough bind.
Stan is in a bind. Although, is he in a bind? I mean, if Stan was smart, Stan would just walk away. Stan is but see, that goes back to that theme I was talking about loyalty. Who is Stan loyal to? Well, Stan's loyal to the FBI, but he's also loyal to Nina. That He does not want anything to happen to her. Yes, he said
he's in love with her.
He's in love with her, but he was loyal to her before he pronounced his love to her. When she seemed to be in danger earlier, especially in season 1, he was ready to pull her out. He wanted to pull her out, and Gad was like, "We can't do it yet." When her life seemed in danger, he was ready. He wanted.
That was because he was trying to do the right thing. He was trying.
And I think that's who. Again, it's a loyalty thing. He's loyal to Nina because she's done so much for the country, and he doesn't know that she's turned on him.
Right. He doesn't know that she. Right.
So Stan is in a bit of a pickle. Stan could step away, but he won't be able to, and that's probably ultimately may lead to his downfall. Yeah. Who knows? By the end of the series, Philip and Stan could be running missions together.
That would be interesting.
Yeah. Elsewhere, so now as that part of the episode has come together, we have the exchange that takes place. Philip brings a Mossad agent to some secret location, some dock somewhere.
Right.
And he exchanged the Mossad agent for Anton, the physicist. And what we learn later is that the exchange deal wasn't for the Mossad agent. It was for the release of 1,500 Jewish Soviets to be able to go to Israel.
Right.
And again, loyalty to the tribe. The tribe figured this physicist's life is worth less than 1,500 people, so we'll take those 1,500. And that was an interesting thing. And then Anton gets in a car with Philip. Where Philip is driving him to a dock, another dock. They've had so many docks there. It is the coast. And you worked in the Coast Guard, so there are many ports that you had to guard.
There are a lot of ports, yes.
Especially along the East Coast, right?
Yes. It happens when you're a coast. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't remember that many docks in Cleveland.
Well, no. I mean, there was the waterfront. I mean, there's more docks on the East Coast. I mean, the coastline of the East Coast is a lot bigger than the coastline of Cleveland.
Right. Okay.
You're not going to find many docks in Utah.
Do they have a coast in Utah? There are no docks in Arizona. How about that?
All right.
It's surrounded by
land,
desert.
Oh, we got off on this tangent.
Well, and we're laughing because the next part of this episode was the most tragic part, which is Anton pleading for his life.
Yeah, it was one of those. Again, I'm watching the episode, and Philip is stoic. He doesn't even tell Anton to shut up. He's just stoic, just listening, just taking it. And Anton's pleading, you can't do this, and yeah, you're a monster, and what kind of person are you? And don't you have a family? And blah blah blah. He plays every single note on the keyboard that he can. And Philip just doesn't react. And I'm watching the episode. I'm like, don't react. And he doesn't. And I'm, and drops him off, gives him off to, a couple other handlers, and they escort him onto the, the boat where he's going to go heading back to Russia. And again, Philip doesn't do anything, just is stoic, and you just know there's a lot going on in his head.
Well, I thought that the performance by the guy playing Anton was very, very good in that. He's just bawling his eyes out. And those are he doesn't want to go back to Russia. He's crying, please don't take me back.
He's terrified. Absolutely terrified.
He's terrified. He doesn't want to go back there. He knows what's going to happen to him when he goes back there. Doesn't know what's going to happen to his family. He's like, please, my son's bar mitzvah's coming up. Just let me stay to witness him become a man, and then you can take me. He's crying, and it's just like, I guess I connected with that because I just imagined, and I think any parent would imagine what it would be like to literally be ripped up away from your family, with them not knowing whether you're alive or dead. I mean, his family, for all intents and purposes, will assume he's dead.
Right.
Nobody's, unless Philip sends a little business card saying, yeah, your husband's alive, but that's not going to happen.
Right.
So they're going to think he's dead. Something terrible has happened to him. They'll move on, and then 10 years from now, the wall drop. He'll come back to America. You find that his kids have, become gothers, and they live in New York City with Paige. So,
yeah,
gothers. It's not even a word. I don't know why it's
gothers.
Gothers.
Sounds
Look
like
at
a city
gothers over there.
Sounds like a city in Jersey. Gothers, New Jersey.
All you wear is black and makeup. The Taylor Munson songs or whatever. The guy who played Anton, by the way, is a guy named Michael Aronoff. He was excellent in this episode. And Cliff Simon was the Mossad agent.
He was good too.
Good. And Kate was played by an actress named Ren Schmidt, whose most prominent role was on Boardwalk Empire. Also, there's a brief scene with Brad.
Yeah.
Guy named Jefferson White. Did we ever get his name last week?
We did.
Jefferson White was back as Brad. And basically, she get. God,
he's the Navy seaman.
Yeah, and Elizabeth has so many identities. I was about to call her Jennifer. She gets the information on the guy that they're supposed
Navy SEAL.
Navy SEAL that they're supposed to assassinate, and basically.
And he knows
what's up. I'll never see you. I'll never see you again. And that's it. That's the end. He realizes it's kind of been used.
And she's just like, yeah, there's things I have to deal with, and
yeah,
you're a great guy. It's not you, it's me.
It's not you, it's me. Yeah, which is a line that Paige uses earlier in the episode. It's exactly. I know it's so funny that you said it. I didn't even think of that.
Yeah,
she uses that line. Oh my god. That's so smart. She basically tells Brad, it's not you, it's me. Then she comes home. She's about to look at the information. Paige walks into the whatever. What is that room? Is that the laundry room?
I think, yeah.
I can't even figure out what rooms are in anymore sometimes. Everything's so dark sometimes. It's just a single bulb. It's like, dude, put some track lighting in there.
It's the 80s, man. That was your basement.
Oh, we had lights in that basement.
Did you?
Yeah, plenty of lights in that basement. You just never had them on when you were down there, Jeff.
Ooh.
Anyway, we won't talk about my parents' basement. So talking about that.
Oh no!
Down there.
No.
But Paige comes into the laundry room in the basement and says, she basically tries to say, "I just want to let you know it's not you, it's me." She uses the line, "It's not you, it's me." It's like, I'm trying to figure out my crazy life, and she can't finish the sentence. And Elizabeth says, "What do you mean? What are you talking about?" And Paige is like, "Never mind." And I'm like, "What is going on with Paige? Is she?"
I don't buy it. I don't buy the.
Do you think she was lying to her?
Yeah, I don't trust Paige anymore.
Really?
Paige is. Yeah, I took that to be Paige just kind of going, you know what? I need to just kind of. I don't think it was like going down and her being conciliatory and like, we're clearing the air and setting everything back straight. I think that was her just kind of getting. That was how she knows to get mom off her back, to feign the conciliatory and be
interesting.
Like, that's the way I took it, because she showed herself to be.
Yeah, but I don't think she's manipulative like that. Do you think?
I mean, think so.
Granted, she's learned. She's got it in the blood.
Yeah.
I wonder. That's interesting. That's a good point. I didn't think of that.
That was the way I took it.
You read it? Okay. I did, and then of course she gave the "It's not you, it's me" line, which was funny. Yeah. So this episode ends with perhaps what I would consider the most intimate moment between Philip and Elizabeth. I don't think that they are ever closer physically and I guess spiritually, I guess, as they are in this one moment. I seriously can't remember. I mean, either one of them or the other has always been like expressing their love, but they've never been this quiet together, and not talking about, the cases or the way that everything is affecting him. It's them, two of them together. It's a very wonderful moment where Philip comes home, and it's a little jokey at first, where he's exhausted. It's the next morning, and Elizabeth says, "Oh, I spent all night with your wife, with Clark's wife."
Yeah.
It's got some explaining to do, and Philip says, "I'll let him know." And then he lies down, and we come back to this symbol of the icicles. And he says, "Did you have icicles where you grew up?" And they talk about icicles, and Philip has this great thing. It's like, we used to use them as swords when we would play because they were so big. And Elizabeth says this really nice thing. She's like, there were icicles hanging when we were leaving the train station in Moscow. There were icicles hanging in the trees, which is a very romantic, pretty thing, especially even growing up where you live, especially you see it all the time. But I remember from growing up in Cleveland, you have those ice storms and just the trees are drooping and the lights. So it's just a very romantic type image, and she recalls that at a time, especially at a time when they hardly knew each other. She remembers this moment, and he remembers it as well. And he turns to face her, and their faces are just inches apart. And they're both like holding hands, and they're smiling. And it's just like I said, it's probably the most intimate moment I can recall them in the show, especially when you consider like last week or a couple weeks ago they had that flashback episode, and she's like, I'm ready to have a kid now, and she starts undressing. It's very
robotic. Yep.
Yeah, very robotic. Here there's love there, and I thought that was, I was like, wow. Out of that whole episode where it's just like all of this stuff going on, I felt like, and it comes to that other theme of home. Home is home is with her,
right?
Where she's at, and there's a loyalty to her. And the next thing you know, they're about to maybe kiss or something. The alarm goes off, the kids wake up, and that's a reminder that that's home, and that's where our loyalties lie. And I love that they managed to kind of work these themes. I think any TV show, they're trying to put that stuff in the stuff they're writing, but a lot of times it's not like.
Well, that's like the anchor. No. While you go out and you get all those overarching themes and all those other scenes, you keep coming back to that anchor, which is.
And I don't think sometimes on TV, I don't feel like that anchor is there. Sometimes it feels like we have to, there's like that rush to get
right
the story. It's all plot driven. It's not so much about theme as it is about characters and plot. And if you're lucky, you can get some kind of broad theme in there. And I just feel like, I know in this particular episode, and this series does it really well a lot, is like they take those broad themes and they take something and they work it into the whole episode, Right. And I think and again, it's like I didn't get that until like the second viewing.
Yeah.
The first viewing felt like I'm just watching a show. It's really cool. It's really crazy. But then, like a great piece of work, great piece of art, writing. Once you get it in that second viewing, if you're lucky to see it again, you really see like, wow, there's a lot of craftsmanship that went into this particular episode. Yeah. The writing, the directing, and everything. And, of course, Kenny Rogers and Hill Street Blues.
Of course.
Yes. So that was this week's episode. I thought that was a fun discussion about this week's episode. And
the thing is that all the stuff that we talked about, we've been chatting for over an hour now, and although the episode did seem to kind of go by kind of fast, there was all this stuff going on, which was, a lot of times these episodes there's a lot of calories to it. There's just a lot of chewing, matter to chew on. Yeah. This one did seem to go by fast, but yet there was a lot of stuff going on.
A lot of substance in this episode, and a lot of. What I liked about it again is like how I was saying, it's like how it started off as these 4 stories, and I just lost picture.
Yeah, I lost your picture too. That's all right. We're almost done anyway.
All right. I'm sorry. How these 4 stories kind of converge at the end. I think I always enjoy when something like that happens. I think that's just good writing.
Yeah, it's a sign of good writing. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, Jeff. Well. Next week we know that Claudia's back, and they're supposed to kill that dude. I guess that's what they imply. That they're supposed to assassinate a field agent. So
it's I don't know if I buy into these. I don't know. The implications always go.
Previews. I mean, I think like a show like Mad Men is mastered giving you just a snippet and make you thinking the next week's episode is about something that nothing to do with.
Yeah. Well, Mad Men's previews are always like just little snippets of, they have like Don Draper going, "What do you want?" And then it'll go over to like, Roger Sterling and be like, "I like to drink." And it just all these random like quotes. It's almost like, like Tourette's. It's just somebody saying something. You're like, what does that mean? What is the, what?
Yeah. You've got to be kidding me. Yeah. And it's like, you think it's like somebody's dead, but really it's like a reaction to like, this great new drink tastes great. You've got to be kidding me.
Exactly.
I work in advertising. This great new drink tastes great.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'll stop now. So, anyway, Claudia's back next week. They got to go kill someone. We see more Kate, the new comely young handler, and We'll see what happens. Jeff, is it that time now? Or
It is that time.
Is it that time?
It is that time.
Is it that time?
That time that we come to every week. It is that time.
What time is it, Jeff?
It is time for the random crew member.
The random crew members.
Which this week is actually going to be interesting because this
random
week,
crew members of the week. You keep talking, I'll just sing underneath you.
Okay. All of these crew members are actually uncredited.
Random crew members. Wait, what? How are they uncredited?
Well, it's what it said on the IMDb.
You set me off course. I can't sing underneath that comment.
It says on the IMDb page that all three of these, there were several that worked on the show, but they're uncredited. So I figured, well then
that says no, uncredited random crew members of the week. Uncredited week. That was my attempt at like Russian black metal.
I was gonna say that or like Motorhead or something.
Motorhead. That always reminds me of Jack Black in School of Rock.
Yeah.
Motorhead. Oh, what am I teaching you here? That's my kid's favorite line from the movie. Okay, I'm a little hyper. I'm a little excited. Baseball starts this week, so
woohoo!
I'm very excited. Of course, you just got a snowstorm, didn't you? So.
No, well, it blew through here last week.
Cleveland. I just saw pictures of Cleveland. They got a snowstorm this morning.
Again?
Like 3 inches of snow or something. It was ridiculous.
Great. So that's coming out our way?
That's all right. We've had some earthquakes out here, so, you know.
Oh, that's right. You have. Didn't you have one last night?
Big one last night. I did not feel it. I was sitting on the couch watching the news, and I was like, what is this? Who's that talking? Why are they talking about an earthquake? Like 5.1. I'm like, wow, that's a big one. When did that happen? And it was like, it happened 5 minutes ago. What? I was like, anyway. That's what it's like here. Now we'll probably have one right now, and the kayak behind me will fall on my head.
Well, it might shut the crickets up.
Oh, are you still here then?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, they're here in case none of my jokes falls flat.
Nice.
Right there, just my joke falls flat and the crickets there. It's great. That's fine.
All right.
Uncredited random.
Our random uncredited crew members. Our first one is Chris Foster.
Chris Foster.
Chris Foster is a dialogue editor.
Oh, sweet.
He actually worked with Kerry Russell back in 2007 as a Foley recordist on her movie Waitress.
Oh, that's a great movie. Did you ever see that?
I've never seen it.
Good movie.
Okay, so in 2012 he was the Foley editor for a documentary short called, I just had to write this one because I thought it was interesting, God is the Bigger Elvis. So,
that's a cool title.
He also worked on 30 Rock, Damages, and the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cartoon, where he was the sound designer. So
the sound designer is?
No.
Do you know what any of these things are? Sound designer is the guy basically who they make especially for animated shows. You're basically designing the sound. You create all the. Think about an animated cartoon.
Yeah.
Well, I guess all cartoons are animated, so I'll just step back for a second. Think about it.
I'm glad you said that because I was thinking of a non-animated one. So go ahead.
Anything animated, all you have is dialogue.
Right.
And then you have blank. It's just nothing. And so somebody has to create the footfall. Someone has to create the car sound. So the T-Rex. That doesn't sound like a T-Rex.
But isn't that just a program that you just grab a clip off of?
Oh no, dude, no. Somebody creates that stuff.
Okay.
Something the sound designer does.
Okay.
So
sound designer
that's what a Foley editor.
It's a Foley artist for cartoons.
Oh no, but I mean they do it for film as well.
Okay.
And you're right; they do have catalogs of noises, but it's knowing a good sound designer, and I know this because my brother-in-law Sean was a sound designer. A good one, it is an art. It's not just about grabbing.
Oh, sure.
It's it's not like footballs. Well, yeah, there's somebody footballs, but a bad sound designer is gonna sound like one of those Japanese or Italian movies from the '60s where everything was dubbed and they're walking on the pavement in slippers and it sounds like they're wearing high heels.
Right.
So a good sound designer actually knows what those sounds is, and if they can't find what they need, they'll go out and record it, and then they mix it, and then they know how to mix it as well. So then it helps create the environment that you are watching and make you believe that it's real.
Okay.
So there you go.
That's what Chris Foster does.
Thank you, Chris. You did a great job.
All right, so our next one is Chris Salamone.
Hey, they're all named Chris this week.
I don't know. No, I got another theme, actually. So they're all uncredited, but there's another theme, and you'll pick it up in a second.
Okay.
I don't know if it's Salamone or Salamone, but I didn't see a little accent thing, so I'm going to say it's Salamone. He's the rigging grip.
Okay.
And has worked on Blue Bloods, 30 Rock.
30 Rock is the T. That's what they're on, right?
What's that? No.
Oh.
Has done a bunch of superhero stuff. Worked on Spider-Man, The Avengers, the first Captain America, one of your favorites, the Wonder Woman TV show.
Oh my God.
And was an additional grip on the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie that comes out this summer.
Oh.
Okay.
TMNT is the connection.
Yeah,
See
maybe.
that trailer for the TMNT?
I did. I got some issues with the costume, but
they're not costumes; they're CG.
Well, the turtle shells are too high. They're I don't like them.
It's mocap.
Yeah, I don't like it.
My son, guess who loves it?
Oh, my son loves it too. My son is like,
I'm glad. Guess who's going to see that movie?
Oh yeah, I am.
I'll go see that. He's like, Dad, that Transformers movie looks cool too. And I was like, yeah, we're only seeing one Michael Bay movie this year.
Yeah, exactly. And then the last one is Veronica Lee Dodonna or Dodona. I don't know. Veronica Lee Dodonna. That's
Veronica Lee. We'll just go with Veronica Lee.
So interestingly about Veronica Lee is that she.
Oh, Wes, tell me the interesting.
Well, she once photo doubled for Megan Fox, and
TMNT, the movie.
Oh, hold on! Don't get ahead of me.
I'm sorry.
And she studied English Reformation literature at UPenn, which makes her she's probably a lot smarter than me.
She's a lot smarter than us, and she just happened to look like she could be a body double for Megan Fox.
Yes. Well, she's the extras casting associate. She's worked on Dark Knight Rises, Amazing Spider-Man 2, and that's right, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movie.
I wonder if she hung out with Megan on that movie.
Maybe. So that's the link. All uncredited, and they all have some link to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, which I didn't plan. It just happened to be that way when I picked 3 random crew members. So
what was her job again? Veronica Lee?
Extras casting associate. Got
it. Yes. Okay. That's cool. That's good.
I remember. So just my one instance of being cast as an extra. I'm in the movie Mars Attacks.
Nice. Are you still in the Coast Guard then?
Yeah, it was when they filmed it in DC. So my buddy and I were both we both got picked up to be extras. You can't see him. He's an soldier in one of the scenes. You can see me only on the widescreen version of the DVD for like a couple seconds. I'm in a scene, a crowd scene. But I remember showing up and they were announcing. I remember we heard on the radio that they had announced that they were casting for like 5 movies at the time. Mars Attacks. American Presidents, the one with James Garner and Jack Lemmon,
Dan Aykroyd.
And like two other movies as well. And so they said, if you want to be an extra, show up. And so my buddy and I are like, woohoo, we want to be in a movie. So, the line to meet the casting agents was, it was like a block long. And it was so funny because my buddy and I are just like, yeah, we're going to play hooky from, work today and go show up to this audition. Just go fill out the application or whatever. And we're standing there. People had headshots and portfolios. And I remember there were these women who were dressed up, like skirts barely over their butts and, just, all decked out. And of course, they're looking smoking hot. And somebody's walking down the row and they've got a headpiece on. They look like they were Secret Service, and they're walking down, and they're looking at everybody in line, and they would see all these hot tardies, standing there and be like, oh, you, and you, come on, out of the line, and they would take them inside. It was like, damn. So we go in, and my buddy and I, we fill out the application, and it's like, do you have any skills and stuff? And we're like, well, we ride motorcycles, willing to do our own stunts, and
You didn't write that you were in the Coast Guard at the time?
Oh yeah, we wrote all that stuff too, but yeah, we were just adding all the stuff. Yeah, we know martial arts and we can do. I just thought it was funny that we were like willing to do our own stunts. So
did you say we can fly planes and all stuff?
Well, we could, but that would have been lying.
Did you have hair then? I mean, had you?
I did. Yes, I did. I did have hair then.
I'm trying to be mean or anything. I'm just.
Yeah. So for those of you listening who can't see me, I don't have hair now.
But you shave your head up.
But right? I shave my head, yeah. Only because it's male pattern baldness that I just can't deal with. So
it looks good on you. You look kind of like you working that Mr. Clean look, man. I like it.
Yeah. I've got I've got a nicely shaped dome for it. So thanks for bringing that up.
I could not shave my head. I've got this, like the bone where my back of my skull meets my spine is like protrudes from my head. It's like a big lump. I've had doctors go, "Whoa, what's that?" I'm like, "That's my skull." Oh, that's a big one. I'm like, "Thanks, man. I'm never losing my hair." All right. And on that note, I just have to say that I am an employee of Cartoon Network and the Turner Broadcasting System, and the opinions expressed here on Comrades, the podcast, a weekly discussion devoted to the FX series The Americans, are my own and do not reflect those of the parent company or Cartoon Network. Wow, I got that all out.
Wow, you're getting better at giving that.
I am getting better at it. This show is brought to you by the Southgate Media Group, who have a wide range of podcasts on their blog. If you're listening to this, I hope you're either listening to it on Popdose, great website with tons of popular culture stuff on there, mostly, a lot of music, some film, and some big television. Or you might, you can subscribe to this podcast on iTunes.
And please send an email in, right into the Popdose site to, try to get that TV editor of theirs to put out more content.
Oh, you're a jerk. Okay. All right then. What else we got there? Yeah, Southgate Media Group, Popdose. Southgate Media Group's website is what, Jeff?
SouthgateMediaGroup.com. We'd love to have you give us ratings on the iTunes, write into us on the Facebook site. Why do I always say the Facebook?
Because
I guess it is the Facebook site, but I always sound...
Yeah, you're not from California where we call all of our freeways the 405, the 10.
Okay.
The Facebook.
I always hate saying...
You sound like one of those old guys. Are you going to go on the internet? Are you going to go on the Facebook? Are you going to go on the Amazon?
I know, that's why it's... but I meant the Facebook. Whatever. Go on to our Facebook. Page. There you go. Go on to our Facebook page. Leave comments and critiques, and let us know if we forgot anything else you want us to hear us talk about, because clearly we don't digress enough during these episodes.
It's only been an hour and a half. We're in pretty good shape.
Yeah.
Ahead
of the game.
Yeah. What else we got? Jeff's comic book, of course. Jeff has written a comic book.
I have two comic books.
Sorry, yes.
Z-Girl and the Four Tigers, about a special ops team led by a female zombie. You can check that out at zgirl.org. And my other one about a hitman who puts a contract out on himself at deadmansparty.org. Both of those are available via Kindle as well, so you can download it on Amazon for your iPad, which it looks awesome. All comics look awesome, digital. But yeah.
That's cool. And I have a book called Basement Songs, the book. You can find it on Amazon as well, on Kindle, called Basement Songs, or you can find it on Lulu if you're interested in the paperback version. For more information about that, you can go to basementsongsthebook.blogspot.com. As I've been talking about for the past couple of weeks, the Great Strides fundraiser is in progress right now. That is a national fundraiser for the Cystic Fibrosis Foundation. If you're interested or any information about helping to find an end to this nasty illness, an illness that my son lives with, you want to help us out here at the podcast, you want to help out the CF Foundation, please check out our Facebook page. I posted information there. You can just write me a letter if you want, and I'll send you information as well. Appreciate all the help that anybody wants to give to fight the CF Foundation. And I will talk about that till I'm blue in the face, till there is a cure. And on that note, I'd like to point out that the music we use here on the website is by a band called Expiate. Dave Sampin is one of the members. The other member was my brother-in-law, Sean. If you like what you hear, we also use their music on the Disturbed podcast, which is our American Horror Story podcast. Speaking of American Horror Story, they announced what the next series is going to be about. Sorry, a little digression there. But you can go to expiate.bandcamp.com and listen to more of the music. And on that note, let's bring in the music, Rob. I hope there's music playing because I didn't say 10 seconds. And It's late. All right, everybody have a great week, and we will talk to you in 6 or 7 weeks.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
If you would like to donate to help pay for this and other Southgate Media Group podcasts, simply go to our website, southgatemediagroup.com, and click on the donate button. It can be as little as $1 or, well, as much as you want. Help keep this fun going by supporting this and our other shows. Thanks again for listening, everyone. You're the best fans in the world.